Domestic violence is like COVID. It can happen to anyone. It cuts across race, religion, economic strata, anyone. So when I started talking about it, I had no strategy. Okay, I'll do this and one day UN will invite me or one day I'll have a career out of it. My whole idea was I have survived. I have to make my life count.
Joining us today is Ruchi Singh. Ruchi Singh is SDG Ambassador to UN. She's an angel investor and she also co-authored a book, one of the best-selling books on Amazon, in fact. Ruchi is here today to talk to us about her experience in life and what made her stronger. And she is a success strategist to a lot of individuals, maybe politicians, maybe diplomats or entrepreneurs. First question, how do you become a SDG ambassador to UN? I would like to know more about it.
All right. First of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm very happy about it. As for that, there is a backstory. I was earlier into corporate HR and my last role, I was heading talent management for Aviva's business called Entrance and was into the corporate thing, transitioning and all that.
Yes.
And then a life experience happened. I went through domestic violence and I almost died. And that was like I had to ask myself some tough questions, and one was, what if I had died that night? What would have been the value of my life? Because the only way we add value to our life is when we add value to other people's life. And that kind of changed my perspective about life. So I started talking about my experience, but the purpose behind it was to create awareness about this issue, which is actually a silent epidemic. We talk about COVID.
Yes.
As an epidemic, yes, but domestic violence is called as a shadow epidemic. We lose more lives to domestic violence than maybe a lot of terrorist attacks. It's that bad. And then things started rolling. I was invited to give a keynote at the UN Bangkok. And it was very well received. And from there, I started getting invites to speak at various platforms. I was part of an award-winning documentary, which actually has won a lot of international awards, like the Amsterdam Film Festival Award. It made it to New York Film Festival and all. So those are the things that started adding up to what I was doing. Then I was part of the UN Women campaign, which they're tied up with Femina, again to create awareness on this topic.
Okay.
And then one fine day I got a call from SDG Chaupans.
Yes.
They have tied up with, it's a collaboration between United Nations, Government of India, and a couple of other key organizations of world, WHO and all. And they said, hey, we would like to offer you the position of United Nations SDG Ambassador. And so my goal is goal number 5.
Okay.
General goal.
SDG Ambassador. So the role. What is your main role by being that?
So it's, honestly speaking, it's not that I have a written agenda on it, but every time I'm talking about this topic or even while through any medium,
yes,
whatever I'm doing, as if it is about this topic or gender equality, I am in a way fulfilling that role.
Okay.
Because the UN has these 17 goals which have to be met by 2030. So we are all working to, it's a huge collaborative effort across the world. Across more than 100 countries. So I play a very minor part.
No, I understand. But see, the voices need to be heard.
Yes.
And who else can more talk about it rather than a person who actually experienced it?
Yes.
It's very easy for me to sit here and talk about it, but I'm not the one who experienced it. You did, and nobody would understand that pain.
That is true.
And what you went through that night, that particular night.
Yeah.
And this happened away from home. You were in Australia when this happened.
Yes.
Were your parents also in Australia back then?
No, I was. So I didn't have any close friends, no close family, nobody I knew in Australia.
Your husband, who was the
perpetrator of a crime. It's a crime.
Exactly. That must have been a really, really difficult moment for you.
Yeah.
How did you, because I'm just asking this because we from India, there's so many wives to go follow their husbands. Same from other countries, follow their husbands and come to a new country, and they don't have a family around them. All they have is that spouse or the kids with them and everything. And this can happen anywhere in the world. It don't have to be Indian woman. It don't have to be any. It don't have to be. Country has nothing to do with it. Domestic violence is a big problem. So, do you? I can't even imagine where you were at that point of time, and then you were all alone, and whom you thought was your closest friend is the one who put you through that. How did you get out of it? How do you, in that situation, in that scenario, how do you get help?
So actually, it's a very good question, right? Because I have this dark joke. There's no humor in it, but domestic violence is like COVID. It can happen to anyone. It cuts across race, religion, economic strata, anyone, right?
Absolutely.
It is sometimes very complicated for the victim to go out and seek help, because there's a lot of psychological damage being done to the person, and they feel also there's a sense of humiliation. How do I tell the world that I'm going through this? We're not supposed to go through it, right? So a lot of time we hold ourselves back, because it didn't happen that one fine day it happened. I was going through it for a couple of years, and then that was the final straw. And I could have gone to the cops any time, but then and he also used to taunt me that who will believe you? I'll say you're lying, and I used to believe that.
So he was manipulating you.
Yeah, so how will I prove it? It's not that I had cameras and all, right? Secondly, when I reached out finally to a person whom I considered a friend, she was also his friend. She actually asked me, she said, "Oh, that's terrible, but babe, he didn't really hurt you, did he?" And that was like a slap on
She had a knife at your throat, literally.
Yes.
And she asked you that question?
Yes. So right now I can talk about it without breaking down, but for the longest time this was one of the most painful moments, because it was not easy for me to reach out and talk to them. And then when you get asked this question, it's like, hey, he didn't really hurt you, so it's like unless he had killed me or maimed me, it's okay, right? So that's called victim bashing, right? And that's another form of violence which is inflicted on a person. These are the things that stop you from seeking help, because where do you seek help? From people around you, from cops and all. And but coming back to it, if you're lucky that you're in a country, because a lot of countries in the world do not consider domestic violence as a crime. So then I don't know what you do. But in countries like India, Australia, and America,
many European countries,
if
and
you go to the cops, they would take action initially, but then again, then you have to prove it, and it's a long process. But cops, of course. And then what I would suggest is always keep your family and your close friends in the know. That was a mistake I did.
Okay.
Till the time I came back to India, my parents had no idea. My very close friends, like my own friends, they didn't know, because I was just I don't know why I was so embarrassed to women all over
the world,
it's when we are victims, we also feel a lot of sense of shame and humiliation. It's like people who are victims of sexual violence
feel that shame. We didn't do anything wrong. Why should we feel
we
shame?
shouldn't, but we are made to feel that, by being asked, what did you do? Why didn't you leave? Why were you there for so many years? The onus is back on you. It's like you wore a short dress, so you got raped. Right?
Okay.
So, but always keep your close family and your friends in the know. That is critical. Do not get isolated, because the more isolated you get, the more fatal it can be for you finally.
Yes. Especially people like that, I think when they know you're weak, they'll put you down more and more.
And for another thing is, since I was in another country, you also feel even more isolated, because it is not your country. So it is, if you're moving away from your country, it is a very good idea to have some key numbers of your embassy or consulate on your phone.
Yes.
And have the numbers on like speed dial if you start facing it.
Of course. You, for example, co-authored this book, which was, I think Amazon's highest selling book.
It's one of the international bestseller. I do not know if it is highest selling, but yes,
that's what I read at least.
Oh, yes. It is?
Yeah. Number 2, and it is co-authored by a lot of
us came together.
So how did that deal come to you?
Okay, so again, I think God has been very kind. I have seen this. When you try to do something for others, somehow the universe rallies around you. So when I started talking about it, I had no strategy. Okay, I'll do this, and one day UN will invite me, or one day I'll have a career out of it. My whole idea was, I have survived. I have to make my life count.
Okay.
And because of that, all these things came. So the Rohan, who's the main guy who like got all of us together, he reached out to me on Instagram of all the places.
Okay.
And he's like, ma'am, I would like to talk to you. These are my credentials. We are doing this book. And we think you have spoken at the UN. So can you write a small chapter about how to give a speech, a keynote at the UN? So I was like, all right, I'll do it. And it was a very nice community.
Yes.
So much love.
Yeah, I've seen the authors on all the time.
Yes.
But you're a success strategist. What does that mean? What is a success strategist?
Okay, that's a fancy word.
Yeah, well.
I have, you have to make it sell. So for me, life has taught me something. I was successful professionally prior to my experience, right?
Yeah.
So I've seen that success. It wasn't like I was a superstar, but I was fairly successful.
Yes.
Right?
In HR.
In HR. After all this, I realized that success is not just that material success.
Yes, of course.
Success, to have a success which we can enjoy, it has to be holistic.
Very true.
Right?
Yeah.
So my idea about success is like a success strategist is you have to attain, sustain and savor your success. And that's where I tell that, hey, I'll come in and I'll help you. And I pitch it like, I've said this, like after hitting rock bottom, within 2 years, I was speaking on the most prestigious stage in the world, United Nations.
Yes.
So I've created it for myself so I can help you do that.
Yes.
And then it has a combination of strategic leadership, brain-based science and spirituality.
Yes.
Because let's be very honest, if you're doing it professionally, you have to have a strategy in place, a blueprint. You have to look at the feasibility of your business, or even if you're just a professional, you still have to do the feasibility assessment. Like suddenly if I decide I want to be a maths professor,
Yes.
I cannot be. I do not have the credentials. I do not have the knowledge, right? So those are the things which will come into strategy.
Yeah.
Then comes the brain-based science. So just to give an example, a lot of us, we have this buzzword storytelling.
Yes.
It is a very powerful sales tool.
Yes.
Because, can I take 2 minutes of your minutes?
Please.
So there was a very exciting experiment done by Professor Yuri Hassan of Princeton.
Okay.
So what they did, they asked, there was this girl, Lauren Silbert, to give a talk on a very normal topic, how she went to her prom.
Okay.
But it was different in the way that they were tracking her brain waves and that of the audience. And what they found was shattering, right? Like groundbreaking. They realized that when Laurel Silbert had activity, say, in her frontal cortex, so did her audience. When she had movement in her insula, so did her audience. So in other words, just by sharing her very normal, simple topic, she could actually make her audience feel whatever she was feeling. That is the power.
Yes.
Now, if you take it from here and put it in a business scenario, sales is actually 95% of the time we do something as simple as buying based on emotions and then justified by logic.
Yes.
And all successful leaders know this historically, whether it's business or politicians, and they use it because once you can influence the mind of your audience, you can get them to do whatever you want, and it can be unethical also, but that's the power.
Yes.
And that is what storytelling can help you do. So there are certain techniques. So suppose I was working with you on this, and ultimately you'll agree with me, a lot of very successful people are very stressed out. The more successful you are, the more stressed you are, and that is where spirituality comes, because unless you can enjoy it, personally, there's no point of success if I can't enjoy my success.
True.
So it's a mix of, meditation, pranayama and all that. So According to the client's need, I'll sit with them and create a blueprint.
Cool.
So that's the kind of thing.
Cool. But yeah, it's very interesting but also you're an angel investor.
So, yes.
Yes. So how, okay, when you say angel investor, I think I can understand the concept of it, that you're financing probably someone, a startup, a new startup or anything. But how do people find you? How does it happen?
So first of all, full disclaimer, I'm a very new angel investor and I'm a small angel investor.
Okay.
But yes, angel investors do very early round seed funding. So it's a very high risk because it's not there in the market. The company you're funding is actually you're funding a promise in reality. So, one thing very critical about, at least for me, is I have to understand the business. If I cannot understand the business, I will not invest.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Secondly, we have to look at the feasibility.
Of course.
So, people can have amazing ideas, but is it going to be feasible financially? Because it's my money and this is not charity. I want returns and high returns.
High returns.
So you have to do that kind of analysis, that the business I'm investing in, what is the probability of it being a success?
Yes.
Right? Then becomes regulatory things. So you have to also be sure that then the leadership is critical here.
True.
So suppose I'm investing in a fintech company, I have to ensure that the founders are very savvy in finance.
Yeah.
They should have worked and have immense knowledge in that field.
Yeah.
So the founders, the leaders are very important because they are the ones who will either make it or break it.
Yes.
But your money, you will either lose it totally or... So these are some of the criteria, and always get it vetted by the experts.
Of course.
So I'm not an expert, but I'll get someone to see.
Okay. And then you go through that.
Financially, how they are doing, what are the projections, how realistic it is. And again, is it technically, it is possible to scale up the business technically?
Yes.
Because the more technology you can use, the cost of, the cost goes down. So the profits go up. I'm making it sound very... simplistic.
It's not because there's a lot of groundwork there before you can actually invest. But how do people get in touch with you? That's my question. Because there's so many young people who are always coming, buzzing with ideas out there, and because they're young, they're mainly college, school even students. And how do people actually go through this? I mean, how do they find these angel investors?
So, see, funding, there are funding houses, there are proper angel investing groups which people can, people can...
How do they find them? That's my question.
In fact, even on LinkedIn, there are a lot of
There's
people.
so many. Okay, so as easy as that.
It's easy to find them, but then the tough part is to convince them to not with their hard-earned money.
Yes, of course, yes, because that's...
it's money,
Yeah. It is, yes, money is not easy. I mean, you need to make it first before you spend it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, really, thank you so very much for coming on my show. Really, I think you definitely made me understand a lot of things. And I hope audience, a lot of women out there who really need help and they don't understand because you feel so alone, so lonely, especially when in a foreign country or anything, and so I think... probably this message out there, will go out to as many as women as possible, and they can somehow make use of it and also become as strong as you. Like today, I've heard your speeches, and you're one of the strongest women I came across. So really, kudos to that.
Thank you.
So thank you, Ruchi.
Thank you so much for having me. And namaste.
And namaste.